Ever look up at the night sky and just wonder, are we really all alone out
Or
here?
maybe picture those woolly mammoths, you know, just roaming the earth again. Well, hold on to your mats, folks, because today we're taking a deep dive into those very questions, all thanks to a super interesting listener request.
It's wild, right? How these big, kind of out there ideas, bringing extinct creatures back, figuring out what Earth was like way back when, and searching for life in space, they all come from that same human need to know, to explore and figure things out.
Totally. And before we get started, a huge shout out to Penelope James. Penelope, your suggestions are the reason we're diving into this awesome stuff today.
Seriously, thank you, Penelope. We've had a blast digging into the stuff you sent over.
Today, we're tackling 3 things that Penelope highlighted. First up, the science behind bringing back the woolly mammoth. We'll focus on these woolly mice, a pretty interesting first step. Then we're going to time travel back to a super different Antarctica one that was actually green. Can you believe that? And finally, we're heading out to space. We'll be exploring the search for alien life on exoplanets, specifically looking at one called Kepler 205, pure sci-fi stuff.
Woolly mammoths, a green Antarctica, and alien planets talk about a jam-packed deep dive. We'll be breaking down the science, exploring what it all means for us Earthlings, and just having a good time with it. So, Lily, where do we begin?
Well, how about we start with something that'll really grab your attention, bringing back the woolly mammoth. And those woolly mice are a great place to start. They're like a sneak peek into what could be possible, just like Penelope's sources suggested.
Woolly mice. It's like something out of a cartoon. But this is real science happening right now, right?
Oh yeah, it's totally happening. In early 2025, a company called Colossal Biosciences announced they'd made these woolly mice. Now, it's super important to remember what Penelope's sources emphasized. They're not aiming for mini mammoths here. It's more like a test run to see if they can give a living thing certain mammoth traits.
Okay, so what kind of mammoth traits are we talking about in a mouse? Tiny tusks.
Not quite. Think more like the stuff that helped mammoths survive the cold. These woolly mice, they actually grew thicker, shaggier fur, way more insulation, and they even changed the way they use fat, which is how those mammoths stayed warm and full of energy in freezing temperatures.
Smart. So how they make these furry little pioneers, as Penelope called them?
Well, they use this cutting-edge gene editing tech. It's pretty wild. They took mammoth DNA sequences from really well-preserved ancient elephant remains, the kind found in permafrost, and they basically inserted these specific mammoth genes into regular lab mice. Picture it like super precise molecular scissors snipping and pasting the genetic code.
So the woolly mouse is like a stepping stone to something much bigger.
You got it. It's all part of a plan to revive a creature really similar to the woolly mammoth. They're not trying to make an exact genetic copy, which would be really tough with ancient DNA. Instead, they're looking to make a hybrid. They want to edit the genome of an Asian elephant.
Which makes sense. Penelope's research said that the Asian elephant's the closest living relative, sharing almost 99% of their DNA.
Bingo! So they're taking those crucial mammoth genes, the ones for cold resistance, the shaggy fur, even the curved tusks, and the plan is to insert them into Asian elephant embryos. And the really futuristic part. The hope is to grow these modified embryos using surrogate elephants or maybe even artificial wombs to create a mammophant.
Mammophant. It has a nice ring to it. Okay, so that's the science. Now, to the million-dollar question. Is this whole de-extinction thing cool or completely nuts? Well, let's start with the cool factor. What's potentially good about bringing back these mammoths?
Well, for starters, there's just the wow factor, like Penelope mentioned. Imagine actually seeing herds of these giants walking around again. Talk about stepping back into the ice age. It really makes you think, doesn't it? About what we've done with past extinctions and whether we could or even should try to fix some of those mistakes.
I see your point. There's something almost poetic about bringing back a creature that vanished so long ago.
And then there's the potential impact on the environment, which is huge. Woolly mammoths were real game changers. They helped maintain these massive grasslands called the mammoth steppe. Their grazing, their trampling, even their poop, it all had a purpose. It kept the ecosystem in balance. Some scientists think that having a mammoth-like creature back could actually help restore these lost ecosystems.
So it's more than just having these cool animals around. It's about actually fixing things we messed up.
Absolutely. Penelope's research highlighted this too. One of the most exciting possibilities is slowing down permafrost thaw. Permafrost is like this giant freezer in the ground. packed with organic matter. And as it thaws, microbes break down all that stuff and release crazy amounts of greenhouse gases, methane, CO2, you name it, into the atmosphere. Talk about a climate change nightmare. But if we could bring back the mammoth steppe, that open landscape that reflects sunlight way better than today's mossy tundra, and with the mammoths themselves doing their thing, some experts believe we could actually keep all that carbon locked underground.
Whoa, that's fighting climate change with a resurrected giant. Pretty amazing if it works. Okay, but Penelope also wanted us to look at the flip side. What are the risks, and are there any ethical concerns?
Oh, there are definitely concerns. Some folks are worried about the whole Jurassic Park scenario. What if things go wrong? And honestly, even though gene editing is super advanced, it's still a big puzzle. They're talking about making thousands of changes to an elephant's genome. Predicting how a living, breathing animal will react to that is tough.
So we could end up creating creatures that aren't healthy or don't fit in.
It's a real worry. And then there's the whole ethics thing, like Penelope mentioned. Is it right to create these genetically modified beings? What if they suffer because of genetic problems? What kind of life could they have in today's world? Would we be able to give them the space and social stuff they need? These are tough questions with no easy answers.
No doubt about it. This is new territory, and we got to be extra careful. Okay, so let's play what if for a sec. Let's imagine this all works out. What are the best case scenarios?
Well, there's the climate warriors scenario, like one of Penelope's articles called it. If mammothants actually help bring back the mammoth steppe and keep it healthy, they could really be key to keeping the permafrost stable, preventing all those greenhouse gases from escaping. There's actually a project in Siberia called Pleistocene Park. They're using other grazers to try and mimic this ancient environment, and it's showing some promising results.
So mammothants as eco-warriors fighting climate change, that's a huge plus. What else could we see?
Maybe even a biodiversity boost. Imagine bringing back a species like the woolly mammoth, or a very close version, could have a domino effect. It could help other plants, animals, even microbes that were part of that old environment to make a comeback. Imagine a richer, more diverse Arctic.
I love that idea. And what about the tech side of things? Penelope's research likely touched on this too.
Absolutely. The technology they're developing for this project, stuff like CRISPR gene editing and those artificial wombs, could have huge applications beyond just mammoths. Imagine helping endangered species reproduce, or even advancements in human medicine, like creating tissues that can withstand cold for organ transplants.
So even if we don't see herds of mammothants roaming around, the technology could still be groundbreaking. Okay, but let's look at the other side again. What could go wrong?
Well, ecological chaos is a big worry. The Arctic today is way different than it was during the Pleistocene. Imagine a mammothant stomping around. What would it do to the plants and animals there now? They could outcompete native animals, crush delicate plants, or even bring diseases that native species have never seen before. And we really don't know how they'd interact with modern microbes.
Right, it's like throwing a wrench into an already delicate system, a system that's already feeling the heat from climate change.
Exactly. And then there's the whole genetic roulette thing. The last woolly mammoths, especially the ones on Wrangel Island before they disappeared about 4,000 years ago, had lots of genetic problems because of inbreeding. They had messed up smell receptors, fertility issues, you name it. We could create mammothants that inherit those same problems, and that wouldn't be fair to them.
You're right. We wouldn't want to create creatures that are going to struggle. And what about the money involved? Penelope's research probably touched on this.
Definitely. The resource strain is another issue people bring up. Colossal Biosciences has raised tons of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. Some people say that money should be spent on protecting the species we have now, especially the Asian elephants they're using for this project. It's a tough ethical choice.
A real balancing act. Okay, so let's say we do have mammothants back in the Arctic. What would that ecosystem actually look like? What did Penelope's research say about that?
The idea of grasslands coming back and maybe even some localized cooling because of the sunlight reflection is pretty exciting. But modern predators like wolves and bears might not be able to handle such big, potentially aggressive prey. And what happens if these mammoths wander into human settlements? That could be dangerous. The truth is, we don't know what'll happen in the long run, and that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating and potentially risky at the same time.
It's like rolling the dice on the future of the Arctic. Okay, Lily, let's switch gears now. From the frozen Arctic to another icy place, Antarctica. Penelope's suggestion to explore this is amazing. Most people think of Antarctica as just, well, ice. But what about this idea of a green Antarctica?
Right. Antarctica is this lush green continent with forests, rivers, maybe even creatures totally different from what we see today. It's mind-blowing. But like Penelope's sources probably said, we got to remember we're talking millions and millions of years ago. The continents have moved, climates have changed. It's all about plate tectonics and those deep timescales.
So there's actually evidence of this, a warmer, greener Antarctica.
Oh, yeah. The evidence is out there. Like in 2017, they found these 260-million-year-old tree stumps in the Transantarctic Mountains. That was back in the Permian period, way before dinosaurs, when Antarctica was part of this supercontinent called Gondwana. It was much closer to the equator back then. And we're not talking tiny plants here. Imagine giant glossopteris trees and tons of fern-like plants, a whole ecosystem. They even found pollen and peat, showing that life was thriving even with those crazy long polar nights. Scientists think these plants might have had some special photosynthesis tricks up their sleeves, or maybe even benefited from heat from volcanoes.
From an icy wasteland to a forest, it's hard to wrap your head around. And Penelope mentioned something about rainforests in Antarctica. That sounds even crazier.
Yeah, if we fast forward to about 90 million years ago, during the time of the dinosaurs, sediment cores from West Antarctica show signs of a swampy rainforest. Back then, Antarctica was further north, and these cores had bits of conifers, ferns, even dinosaur footprints. They estimate the average temperature was around 12 degrees Celsius, which is 54 degrees Fahrenheit, way warmer than today. It all points to rivers, lots of water, and a totally different landscape.
Forests and rivers in Antarctica. And there's more evidence, right? What about those ancient riverbeds under the ice?
Right. Even under all that ice, we've found signs of old riverbeds and huge subglacial lakes using satellites and radar. Some of these were probably active millions of years ago when things were warmer. Lake Vostok, this massive lake buried under kilometers of ice, is a perfect example. It's sealed off from the surface, but scientists think it could hold ancient microbial life and clues about Antarctica's past.
It's like a hidden world waiting to be discovered under all that ice. So what does this green Antarctica tell us about our planet, about climate change?
It shows how wild Earth's climate can be. This whole climate roller coaster, as Penelope's research called it, is no joke. Imagine a continent going from lush forests to a frozen desert and back again. It all comes down to things like CO2 levels. Back then, those levels were way higher, over 1,000 parts per million, compared to about 420 ppm today. It's a big warning sign, showing that even small changes in greenhouse gases can completely change the planet. It's not just ancient history, it's a lesson for us right now.
A reminder that we need to take climate change seriously. What else does it tell us about Earth's past?
It helps us put together the pieces of the plate tectonics puzzle, like figuring out how the continents moved. The fossils they found in Antarctica, those plants and animals, are really similar to the ones they found in other places that were part of Gondwana, like South America and Africa. This helps us track Antarctica's journey south over millions of years and shows how the continent's changing positions affected ocean currents and, eventually, led to Antarctica freezing over.
So those ancient Antarctic ecosystems are like time capsules.
Exactly. And the fact that life was so resilient back then in those extreme conditions with those crazy light cycles is amazing. It makes you realize how adaptable life is, which is super important for astrobiology when we're thinking about the possibility of life on other icy planets or moons.
Imagine maybe dinosaurs roamed those forests. It's wild.
I know, right? And the ice itself is like a giant ice time capsule. As it melts, which is happening because of climate change, we could find more fossils, maybe even well-preserved microbes from those lost ecosystems. Who knows what secrets are buried there?
Wow. Okay, Lily, ready to blast off into space. Penelope's suggestion to explore alien life is, well, out of this world.
Let's do it. Okay, so Kepler 205, we're using this as our example, but unlike some other exoplanets, we haven't actually found it yet. It's more like a model based on real discoveries like Kepler 186f or TOI 700 Dead. Think of it as a stand-in for the kind of Earth-sized planet we're hunting for, one that could potentially support life.
And it's all about the habitable zone, right? The Goldilocks zone, where it's not too hot, not too cold, just right for liquid water, which is essential for life as we know it.
Right on. So picture Kepler-205, a rocky planet about the size of Earth, orbiting a red dwarf star. Red dwarfs are smaller and cooler than our sun, so their habitable zones are closer in. Now, how do we study a planet that's light years away? One cool way is transit spectroscopy. It's like when a tiny fly crawls across a light bulb, you can see the light dim, right? By analyzing how the star's light dims and changes color when a planet passes in front of it, we can figure out if the planet has an atmosphere and even what it's made of.
Pretty ingenious. And Penelope's note said we've discovered over 5,500 exoplanets, with dozens of them in that habitable zone. It's mind-boggling how many other worlds are out there.
It really puts things in perspective. Now, what makes a hypothetical planet like Kepler 205 so important for finding alien life? Well, first, there's a potential for liquid water. If it's there, that's a huge deal. Some scientists even think that a thick atmosphere with gases like CO2 and nitrogen could keep things warm enough for oceans, even around a cool star like a red dwarf.
So the conditions for life might exist there. But how do we find actual signs of life from so far away?
That's where things get really exciting. Powerful telescopes, especially the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, can analyze the light that passes through or bounces off a planet's atmosphere. They're looking for what we call biosignatures, specific gases or combinations of gases that are strong hints of life. For example, finding a lot of methane and oxygen together would be super exciting. On Earth, oxygen comes from photosynthesis, and methane is quickly destroyed by it. So finding them both means something must be making that methane. And if a planet has a stable climate like Earth, it's even more likely those biosignatures are from living things.
It's like a cosmic game of Clue. Now, Penelope mentioned this red dwarf twist. A lot of these potentially habitable planets are around red dwarf stars, which are both exciting and challenging, right?
You got it. The good news is that red dwarfs live for a really long time, way longer than our sun. That gives life more time to evolve. But the downside: red dwarfs have these intense flares, sudden bursts of radiation. Those could wipe out life or even strip away a planet's atmosphere. That's why scientists are studying the atmospheres and magnetic fields of red dwarf planets. Those could act like shields against those flares.
It's like a cosmic balancing act. So what's next? How do we learn more about these exoplanets, especially those like Kepler 205?
Well, the JWST is already rocking it. By now, it's probably given us tons of data on the atmospheres of some exciting candidates. We might even have found traces of water vapor, haze layers, maybe even oxygen. And that's just the beginning.
Amazing. And what about those super telescopes of the future that Penelope was talking about?
Oh yeah, there's the European Extremely Large Telescope, or ELT, which should be up and running around 2027. And NASA's got the Habitable Worlds Observatory plan for the 2030s. These telescopes are going to be beasts. They'll be able to take actual pictures of exoplanets and analyze the light bouncing off their surfaces. We might see oceans glinting, or even signs of plant-like pigments.
You might actually see another Earth. Mind-blowing. And what about that Breakthrough Starshot project? That's like science fiction come to life.
It's crazy ambitious. The idea is to send these tiny probes to nearby stars, like Proxima Centauri, using powerful lasers. They could travel at a fraction of the speed of light, maybe 20%. So if there's a habitable planet like our Kepler 205 relatively close by, maybe within a few dozen light years, these probes could reach it in a few decades and send back images and data about the surface, the atmosphere, maybe even signs of life.
Wow, an actual picture of an alien world. That would change everything.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the fun, speculative stuff. Penelope's research talked about some really cool possibilities for alien life on a planet like Kepler 205f.
Okay, so Kepler 205 is around a red dwarf, right? And red dwarfs give off different kinds of light than our sun. So what if plants there evolved to use different pigments for photosynthesis? Instead of green chlorophyll, maybe they're purple. And who knows, maybe life there isn't even based on water. Some scientists think methane could be a possibility, although that's probably less likely.
Purple plants on an alien world. How cool's that?
Right. And here's another interesting thought. What if Kepler 205 is tidally locked? That means one side always faces the star, and the other side is in eternal darkness. Maybe life exists in the twilight zone, that in-between area where it's not too hot and not too cold.
Like finding a way to thrive in the most unlikely places? Life really does find a way, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, this search for life on planets like Kepler 205 all boils down to that huge question, are we alone? Just finding microbes on another planet would be massive, but what if we keep searching and find nothing? That would mean Earth and life here are even more special than we thought.
It's a question that's been bugging us for ages, and we're finally getting close to an answer. We're living in an amazing time for science and space exploration.
For sure. The possibilities are endless.
Well, Lily, Penelope James gave us so much to think about today. We've covered bringing back woolly mammoths with those woolly mice, exploring the ancient green Antarctica, and searching for alien life on planets like Kepler 205. It's crazy how all these different areas of science connect back to those big questions about who we are and where we fit in.
I know, it's amazing. Each topic gives us a different piece of the puzzle, the history of Earth, the potential for life elsewhere.
So, Penelope, if you could pick one discovery, just one, that would totally change our understanding of the universe and our place in it, what would it be? We're curious to know what our listeners think, too.
What stood out to you the most from all of this?
And if you want to learn more about any of this stuff, check out our website, www.dansplain.xyz. You'll find all our latest deep dives, articles, even some cool products we love. Thanks for tuning in to this special listener request edition.
And keep those brains buzzing.